Mr. Miller. I'm excited to be here with you today. So I've just got some questions for you to kind of introduce your role and your new shop to our members at large. So if you could kind of describe exactly what Accelerate Mississippi is and really what you view the mission and vision of that office being.
Sure. So it is always a privilege and a joy to get to visit with you, John. And I know Mississippi Manufacturers Association is a huge partner and it has been for quite some time to the state of Mississippi. So I'm grateful for your time and certainly looking forward to growing that relationship with Accelerate. Accelerate Mississippi, I believe, was really created to be the great coordinator, the single point of contact for existing industry and future industry as it relates to solving workforce needs. And I think that I know for years organizations like yours and others have been voicing the need to have that single point of contact, to have that single office whose role is really to focus on how do we use all the wonderful resources available to us as a state in a much more coordinated fashion to move that needle in the areas that are the most of the highest and greatest need, and also be thinking more in an innovative way as to how we prepare ourselves for challenges that we know are coming on the horizon. So I think at the end of the day, we were created to be a coordinating body, an office that is to work with other organizations and agencies to coordinate efforts to meet the needs of your constituents.
Well, no, and I think that's spot on. As you know, in your previous role at the University of Mississippi, this is an issue that's been around certainly since I've been at MMA, and it predates that even. So with this new office and this kind of new mission of central coordination with not only helping to recruit new industry, but also the existing industry, which is just as, if not more valuable to the growth and health of the state with the workforce. What are some of the long-term goals of the office as you move forward, and how do you kind of plan to get there?
Sure. So, in the first few days of my tenure in this role, which has only been about 5 months now, I'm not counting, but it was really try to identify like 3 key areas that I thought Accelerate needed to focus on, at least in the initial days. I still feel the same way that there's definitely 2 that I think are primarily positioned well to collaborate with your membership. One of those is what I call workforce triage. That's the idea that their company, their businesses right now. In fact, I've even talked to some of your members yesterday about needs that they have right now that they arguably had even months ago, and how do we address those needs as quickly as possible, but doing it in a way that makes sense strategically, so that we might not find ourselves in the same position in the coming years, regardless of pandemics or economic downturns or upswings. So I think some of the goals that Accelerate has is how do we, working with your membership, collaborate and communicate more openly, more honestly about what the problems really are, if there are problems, and identify new workforce or new folks to come and be a part of a team in a certain company. What are those obstacles, and how can we quickly and effectively address those? And then also developing long-term goals, what I call horizon thinking. What are we doing right now to prepare for new technologies, new innovations, what we see in supply chain on the horizon that may impact our local businesses and local manufacturers here. What are we doing right now to prepare for those things? So I think the goals, short-term and long-term, are improving the lines of communication with your membership so we know exactly, specifically what those needs are, strategically using resources to meet those needs as quickly as possible, but also identifying those things on the horizon that can better prevent the kinds of struggles and obstacles that we're facing right now as a result of COVID and other things. So I would say those are probably our goals, and those are shifting sands. I think as your membership reaches out and talks more to us, we understand better that those goals can change. They're malleable, but the key is communication with your folks.
Well, no, and I appreciate that, and I do think communication is critical, not only for our members to more fully conceptualize their specific needs, but also deliver that message directly to an operation that can actually do something for them. Mm-hmm. So, with that in mind, what message can you help me deliver to my membership on specific ways that they can engage with your office and really open those lines of communication and get way more specific? Because we have a problem in this state where we identify a problem and it's often at the 30,000 foot view. Mm-hmm. We really need to drill down, and I know you recognize that. What's the best way for a manufacturer, a member of MMA, to broach that topic and that conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're right. We have to get more granular. I think having those 30,000 foot conversations is important, but the follow-up to that is even more important. And I think the way that we can do that, we have this new structure that we're trying to deploy and develop, and that's our ecosystem approach. You've heard me say this before, many of your members have as well, that creating a voice amongst these 8 ecosystems. There are really arguably 8 different ecosystems in the state of Mississippi that are distinct, that have different challenges, weaknesses, strengths, resources, population densities, infrastructure. And so to answer your question, it's going to those ecosystems and making sure that we have your members at the tables in those ecosystems, because what's going to transpire there is we're going to have the 30,000 foot conversation. What are the problems facing your community as it relates to workforce? Well, we can't find people. Well, why is that? Let's really kind of identify, based upon the specific needs and the specific area in which this table is sitting, let's drill down to find out, is it because there just aren't enough people? Is it because that we don't have enough of the opportunities from your members being communicated to people at the right age? Is it that we don't have enough opportunities in our K through 12 systems for students to explore different career opportunities? Is it that we need to have stronger relationship with our local community colleges? What is it at a granular level? The way we do that is getting your members to those tables and those ecosystems. And I have said this, I have been so encouraged by many of your members already who have come to us proactively and said, we want to help. Yes, we have problems, and we can tell you what our problems are, but more importantly, here's what we're willing to do to help you with this. That has meant a lot to me. It will continue to mean a lot to our mission as Accelerate. I think the best thing they can do right now is, as we develop these ecosystem structures, so we try to, quote unquote, set the table, those companies that want to be a part of that conversation and want to put some resources on the table to try to meet those granular level needs, I think that's the absolute best way they can get involved and see some change effectuated in their communities.
That's excellent. And I do feel like one of the problems that we've seen, especially with manufacturers and certainly in that small to mid-size manufacturing space, is that they really don't understand, number one, what resources are already available at the state level and even sometimes at the local level, and really connecting those dots. So when you say set the table, what can be some maybe some recommendations that you could give leading into those conversations about some of the things that the manufacturing community might need to identify even before they engage? Because as I understand it, around that table are all of these partners, and it would be very valuable for them to hear the direct message from the employers, because I know that voice is, number one, difficult to engage because, obviously if you're a manufacturer, you're trying to produce product, you have a focus on your business. And so it's difficult to kind of pull out of that sometimes and really get specific on these things. So as you're setting that table, what kind of advice can you give to a company in my membership?
Yeah, I think, look, there's no doubt there are some companies and some ecosystems, quite frankly, that are probably already functioning in a very, very healthy way. I mean, I don't have any illusion of the fact or the idea that we're going to develop this structure and it's going to be the first time that these types of conversations have ever taken place. I do think that this might be the first time where these kinds of conversations are going to take place on a much more consistent basis. And it's certainly going to be the first time where you have a state agency or an office dedicated solely to this subject matter. So I think the best thing that your members can do if they're not already engaged in this type of conversation is to really spend time thinking through, okay, if we're having issues with workforce, internally really trying to think through, this goes back to the Kaizen continuous improvement model. It requires each of us to look in the mirror. What is the current condition, and be really honest about it. Are we not paying enough? Do we not have enough training opportunities? Do we not have enough leadership opportunities? What are we doing to stay competitive in this market? What are we doing? Just being very cognizant of what your members are doing at a granular level before they come to the table, number one. But number two, and this is where I would say I'm greatly encouraged by many of your members, their willingness to be very honest at these tables. We know that oftentimes it can be very uncomfortable to talk about difficult things with different parties and organizations at the table that may be involved in past collaborations or projects. We've got to figure out a way how we can lovingly have a conversation to say, we've done things in the past, they just haven't worked. Let's be honest about that, and let's call a spade and say, let's look to the next, what can we try now based upon knowing what hasn't worked in the past. So I think before they come to the table, doing everything they can to say, how can we internally identify some areas in which we might be able to improve that we can bring to the table, and then being willing to be honest at the table with us to say, this is what's worked, this is what hasn't worked, here's what we would suggest. And to your point, I use this adage all the time where we say in some cases the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. In some of these communities, the left hand doesn't even know there is a right hand. And sometimes that left hand and right hand are right across the street from one another. So my hope is that we can facilitate conversation where we've done some great self-reflection, we're having honest communication, but Accelerate can help to, in those areas where perhaps this hasn't happened before, Accelerate can really identify, hey, here's the left hand, right hand, here are the things that y'all can be doing you didn't even know existed before now. So I think that honesty before they come to the table, or the kind of self-reflection before they come to the table, what are really the individual problems we're facing, how can we address those, and then being honest about that when they come to the table. I think if everyone is doing that, and I mean everybody at the table, not just your members, community colleges, our K through 12 system, the state, quite frankly, has a lot of self-reflection it needs to do in this arena. If we can do that and be willing to have a very honest, even if it's uncomfortable conversation, I think we're going to see some great progress as a result of that.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on, and you hit on a word that I kind of want to go back to, that consistency, and I would add that follow through. Because I think, and this probably goes across the spectrum of what we're considering our partners, but certainly from our members, we've consistently seen programs and projects and initiatives come down from either the state level or local level that the intentions are great, and even the models might be great, but after a couple of years, 3 years, whatever it is, it just falls off. And we start something new. And I do think that in order to build that level of trust and willingness to engage consistently and repeatedly and over a longer period of time, there has to be that sort of proof of concept of, hey, this is not a one-off thing. We're not going to have some focus groups and walk away. So I do think that's very important, and I appreciate you looking in that direction and really concentrating on that. So with that being said, how, I guess what might be the best ways, manufacturing all over the state, the ecosystem approach, I think is wise, whether that's geography or concentration of sectors or whatever. What's the best way for a manufacturer in any part of the state to reach out, engage, participate with what Accelerate's doing and really starting to move toward the table and creating that conversation?
Well, John, that's a great question. We're going to have more information that we are able to kind of deploy as it relates to the setting the table. So this next phase we're moving into, I call the setting of the table phase. So we're going to actually have some more information that we're going to be able to share and to disseminate to you, hopefully with your permission to disseminate to your members about how specifically how they can sign up or reach out to who want to be at these tables. But I want to go real quick. Talk to a point that you made where consistency is concerned. Here's one thing that I want to caution us all on. This will take time. And I think this goes to, in past iterations, you might have had a good idea, the rhetorical you, the royal you. We might have had a good idea, but that we didn't see through. I think in large part you're going to find that so often when those ideas fall by the wayside, it's because we didn't lay the predicate or create the structure that would allow them to grow in perpetuity. The thing that we're trying to be very cognizant of is laying a foundation, creating this the right way, doing it with the right people that understand the nuances and the difficulties that we've faced, that recognize some of the successes and some of the things that we have done well in the past and know how to carry those forward. Taking the time to lay the structure out in a very holistic way so that consistency is a part of this, that this is not going to fall by the wayside in 4 years, in 7 years, in 12 years. This is going to be something that exists in perpetuity because it has to. If we want to see real progress, we can't just start over every 1 or 2 years with the new shiny widget. So the Accelerator is really focusing on doing this the right way, laying that structure out, bringing the voices to the table that we know are most important, your constituents being amongst those, to see to it that this conversation continues and that we're actually able to be proactive in meeting those needs in perpetuity. So I just wanted to make that comment because I think it's so true what you said. Consistency is probably one of even the most important elements of this endeavor. So thank you for bringing that up.
Well, no, I appreciate that, and kind of to your one of your points there at the end, we are definitely an engaged partner. Mm-hmm. We want to help deliver your message and your outreach to our members. So, count us in for that, because I do think that we have the right momentum right now, and we just need to keep that going. Mm-hmm. And we look forward to being that partner and helping you along. I think this is going to be a real team approach, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, MMA has always been a great partner. We're grateful for that partnership, but as I always say, we're always open to any criticisms, any advice. Your members need to know that this is an opportunity where they can be a part of this team, even in the creative process of developing it out. So I'm grateful for MMA. Y'all have already been so hospitable in opening your doors and being willing to have the conversation. So I look forward to that growing.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, John. Always a pleasure.